This week, I sat down with Scott Gutenberger, VP of Marketing at Agency Analytics, a reporting platform for agencies. We discussed what makes agency analytics different, great for agencies, and how integrating an efficient, well-designed reporting strategy can change the game for your clients and your agency's reputation. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Socialistics podcast, Social Media Agency Stories. Real excited about our guest today. It's been great really talking to all of the different folks of the different technology platforms that we have partnered with over the past few years. And today's guest and their platform has been a critical component to our success. So Agency Analytics is a all-in-one reporting platform designed for agencies. And I've talked about this in previous episodes about how we tried to use all-in-one solutions, and at the time it just wasn't working for us. And in order for us to differentiate, we really found the path to success was picking technology partners that kind of focused on a singular thing. And so I know we've talked with Planable and outfits like that kind of are focused on content management. Agency Analytics is all about reporting and analytics, and that's a big critical component of what we do. You know, helping our clients quickly and easily understand the work that we're doing for them, and how the results are shaping up. And Agency Analytics has been great, being able to build custom dashboards, and just the user experience for the client is outstanding. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing to us. I mean, I want to be efficient. I want our agency to be efficient. But if I have to pick and choose, the client needs to have a seamless, flawless experience, even if it means internally we've got some things to figure out. And that's the thing that I'm most impressed with Agency Analytics. So I'm excited to talk to Scott Gutenberger, VP of Marketing at Agency Analytics. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's just dive right in. Let's start with tell me a little bit about your journey, a little bit about you, and how you kind of found yourself at Agency Analytics.
Sure. So I've been in SaaS for 6 or 7 years now. I started actually in franchise business and small agencies. So I got to experience all of the growing pains, the reporting pains, the data pains that I'm sure you and your listeners are very accustomed to by now. And at a certain point, I was, responsible for 30 clients, not only doing their social media, reporting their social media, doing their pay-per-click, reporting their pay-per-click, but also doing their video for them. It was very, very time-consuming, just the data side of that alone. So at a certain point, I wanted out. So I moved into these data spheres. I started with other companies, NinjaCat. Same thing, looking at focusing on making the individual marketers' lives easier at these digital agencies. And that path eventually took me to Silicon Valley, where, again, I was with a big data company like TechWish. And, I learned, grew there, and then moved over to Agency Analytics, which in my mind really had this pinpoint, perfect laser focus on agencies and solving those problems that you yourself and me experienced. So that's a little bit about my travels, how I got here, and
awesome.
what I'm focusing on.
So tell me a little bit. So that's great. So tell me a little bit about the Agency Analytics story. Like, how did they come to be? A little bit of the history and kind of where they're at today.
Yeah. So Agency Analytics was actually, they started as an SEO tool called My SEO tool. Sorry, it was started by two guys, Blake, Joe. They were the developers. Both of them actually left their jobs and decided that they got 1 year to come up with something awesome before they ran out of money, and we're just stuck, right? Well, they started development. It began in 2009, and then they launched a first version of the product July 14th, 2010. They made about $500 that month, and they actually wouldn't take a paycheck themselves until 2011. So I really like that story. I think that story resonates. Mm-hmm. it resonates with me as just a person, and I think other people can kind of resonate with that. It's an interesting story about how they started, but now they are, more agency focused. They grew out of just focusing on SEO and saw the need for a reporting focused platform, which really started to make them very special, very unique, because now they were this reporting platform with all these SEO features. And then they've kind of graduated from that to data focused around what agencies need, what their problems are, what they want to do, and how they want to share data with their clients. So
awesome. One of my favorite words that I've used on the podcast oftentimes, probably have to come up with a new one here pretty soon because people are going to get sick of hearing it, but it's the art of disruption. I love companies that disrupt. And I've used the example of Uber and businesses like that just kind of came in and turned things upside down in the spaces that they're in. So when you think about agency analytics, as it stands today, like how do you guys disrupt? Like what have you done that's really been unique and different that has allowed you to kind of grow over the past few years?
So there's a couple things that I think actually allowed them to stay so strong for 10 years, and also things that we're starting to look at that will continue that. First and foremost, data in general seems to be confusing. There's this barrier to entry, right? Everyone needs it and they know they need it, right? But even marketers are sometimes, how do I use this? How do I get this? What does this even mean? And the companies can define all these KPIs and data points all they want, but people still have this need, agencies, for an easier data experience. So, and that doesn't mean dumbing it down or washing all the stuff, the customization that you need out. It just means there's got to be an easier way to approach this. And that's one of the main things that I think started to differentiate agency analytics. If you go to some of our competitors, which are great platforms, they're hard to set up. Data shouldn't take 1 to 2 hours. You shouldn't need to hire an external team, the whole Salesforce thing, to use your data appropriately. So I think one of the ways we've disrupted the market actually is by making data easier to use and understand and work with.
Yeah. I love that. And I actually want to tell a little story because it's so applicable here that I think it'll drive it home for the audience. Is we had the Air Force came to us, which was incredible. Like it was a groundbreaking opportunity for us. And their biggest pain point, I couldn't believe it. They actually sent me the report from the previous agency that they were working with. They sent me this PDF and it was about 30 to 40 pages. It was ugly. It was just cumbersome. I could barely understand it. And they were so frustrated about not knowing the results and having to spend time looking through this thing. And I couldn't believe it. And I think that for me, that was a huge light bulb moment. We ended up winning that client. I think a lot of it had to do with just the fact that we making it easier for the client to work with us especially around reporting and analytics. So that's the thing that really has been impressive to me about what you guys do is that, and you kind of said it perfectly. It's like you're not dumbing it down necessarily. You're just making it easier to digest. And I think a lot of the all-in-ones don't devote enough time and energy into how the data is presented. They focus too much on just trying to squeeze all of these things in, and it just doesn't look good. It's not organized in a logical way, and it's just not a great user experience. I think that's the biggest disconnect. They don't deliver a great user experience for clients. And I think to me, that's one of your biggest disruptors that you kind of touched on is you deliver a user experience that's digestible. Like they can look at that and they can understand it. It's visually appealing. It's enjoyable. That's why I've always said, in the Mac PC debate over the years, me personally, I like Macs because I enjoy using them. Like to me, PCs are very utilitarian. Like they serve a purpose. You use it for something, whereas the Mac experience is enjoyable. I like being on. So it's the same thing with you guys. I enjoy using your platform because it's easy to use and it looks great and the clients love it. So to me, that's been such a huge benefit to our agency, and anybody that's listening that runs an agency or is thinking about it. I mean, you really should take a look at it because it allows you to differentiate.
it's been really beneficial for us. It's allowed us to really tap into the vein and allowed us to grow our product in just the right ways as well. And we're very protective of that method as well. And really goes to Blake and Joe from the beginning. This is the type of methodology that they put in from the start. How they approached data, how they approached building the experience around the data. And as we grow bigger, the challenge becomes still delivering that. But that is our main focus. It's almost like a mantra of our company. And I think that alone will guide us in the right direction as we, as a company, continue to grow.
Yeah. So in addition to kind of what we just kind of talked through, like in your opinion, like how can marketing agencies stand to benefit from using your platform versus say all-in-one platforms or other platforms that you compete with?
Sure. So one of the biggest benefits is we're bringing all of your marketing and your e-commerce data into one location. So you're not jumping between these other platforms. You're not exporting all these different reports that come out very differently from all of them and trying to mash them together in something that you consider presentable. When you come into agency analytics, we want to make your life a lot easier. When you start bringing your data into our platform, stuff's happening in the background. Your dashboards are populating. So it's those experiences that we've really focused on, making your data life easier. That I think pushes to the forefront there.
Awesome. When you think about you've got agency experience, so I'm interested in your take on this. Like, how can an agency differentiate itself from others when it comes to analytics and reporting?
So I would say it's all about how you tell the story of the data. How can an agency differentiate themselves? If you're bringing in the data and you're setting it out, how are you telling that story? How are you delivering that story to the client? Anyone can send a dashboard or a PowerPoint or an email, and hey, here's what happened this month, right? With nothing really behind it. I think the way that you as a brand and even how you service the customer all comes down to the stories you're telling around that data and how you're engaging your clients, your customers inside of those stories. As humans, we love to tell stories. So it should be no different when it comes to the insight that we're pulling out of our business data. Just tell the story of it, a campaign's life cycle, the wins, the highs, the lows. Tell that actual story to them. It also helps with transparency. When you are telling highs and lows and when you're composing the story around these marketing campaigns, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for them to trust in you because of that transparency.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, we're in the business of telling stories, and certainly that translates to how we treat our clients and how you communicate the work that you do for them. It's not only just about the results themselves, but helping them navigate that. They don't have the time typically and the desire to go too deep on any of this. They just kind of want to know, what's worked, what hasn't, what are you going to do moving forward to improve the areas that we have opportunities around. So I love that. I love, I love that as an agency. And I think that's great advice for anyone that's just starting out or looking to start one. Seeing that you've got agency, background, what are your thoughts and opinions on kind of the current landscape of agencies and how they're evolving and how they're going to continue to need to evolve, whether that relates to our current environment or just from a technology perspective? What are some things in your opinion that you see trending or changing when it comes to agency life?
So small and medium agencies, in my experience, have been fairly agile. They have to be more agile in order to keep up. So I think that the times that we're currently in right now has kind of pushed everyone to the digital forefront. A lot of us were already there. Some of us are already working, remotely. Some of us are already working with massive amounts of data. But now everyone seems to be at that line. And the ones that saw the writing on the wall and made the shift towards data focus is, or even specifically like e-commerce data partnerships. I think they understand the world that's going to come out of this. It's going to be even more data driven. Privacy is going to start, as we're seeing with Facebook and Apple, privacy is going to also take a new, very larger spotlight in the conversation. Agencies that have been nimble enough to understand that this is where the world was going, regardless of a viral outbreak or anything else. This is where the world was going. Are already both in mind and in practice set up to transition to that new world.
Yeah.
I know larger agencies have the money and the power to make those shifts, but I wonder if some of them will stagnate or stay stale in certain channels or areas just because of pressure from large paying clients. Whereas I think the smaller clients are like, no, we need to shift. I'm a small business, mom and pop. We need to shift. And they're the ones pushing the smaller agencies to make those changes as soon as possible.
Sure.
So I think small and medium probably saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah. Are you guys a virtual company? Were you pre-pandemic as well?
They did have an office in Toronto, but they have people all over the world.
Yeah.
I'm located in Hawaii, but we've got APAC as well. We've got an individual in Saigon. We've got people on the Pacific side as well in Canada. So we're worldwide. It's almost, you have to be virtual at that point.
Yeah, it's been so fascinating. I mean, we were too. I mean, when we first started, I thought, eventually we'll get the big fancy office so we can compete with the big boys. But then, we just were creating momentum and it was working, and it allowed me more flexibility as an agency owner to price more competitively and find better talent. We were just like, you know what, let's just keep this path going. And the pandemic hit, that just reinforced everything. So, as horrible as the situation that we're in, and hopefully, we're approaching some sort of normalcy here in the near future. The one thing that is fascinating is, what is the world going to look like from a business standpoint? I think a lot of, especially around agencies, I think more and more agencies are going to push to being virtual. I mean, clearly the work allows for it. And I think the majority of agencies outside of the multi-million dollar giant ones, I think they're all going to go virtual. So we've been using that as kind of a differentiator. How much longer we'll be able to do that, I'm not so sure. But the thing that's been fascinating is all these interviews I've been having with folks like yourself, they've all been virtual, even pre-pandemic, which I just think just makes sense. I think that we're finding that companies that were kind of in that place, they're more efficient. They're able to be more nimble. They're able to operate more. They just get things done. You don't let the things that, the dumb things like, sitting in traffic or sitting behind a desk for it, just things that don't matter. Right. It's about the work. And so it's no surprise to me that actually all of our partners were virtual companies, even before things started going south with the virus.
So workaholics like me, companies probably love people like me working at home because 24 hours.
Well, it takes a certain dynamic, right? You got to be wired for this. Like, not everybody is. There's plenty of people that, need that structure of, I go to work, I sit down, I do my thing, I punch out, I go home. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, some people just, they're wired like that. And then people like you and I, it's like, no, I mean, my personal business life they're gray areas. Like, I love my work and it doesn't matter what time I'm working and where I'm at, it's just all one big thing. So you got to be wired for that. It doesn't work for everybody.
Definitely. I also think that being virtual has allowed a lot of other great opportunities that have lifted the quality of my work. Mm-hmm. I've been able to, I actually have been taking vacations too, whereas before when I was going into office, I actually never would take a vacation. So now I'm traveling to, or I was at least, to Cartagena, Barranquilla, and experiencing different cultures, and then bringing those experiences into the workplace. Not only as I interact with more people from all over the world, but then that's also brought into the work that we do. We understand more problems. We have a bigger understanding of the world. As you experience it, you yourself change, and then how you approach problems changes as well. How you talk to people changed as well. So I think there are all these hidden benefits of being virtual that aren't really spoken of yet,
Yeah.
but they do also help out, not only personal, but
Sure.
business life.
Okay. Well, I'm going to throw a tragedy at you and see how you deal with this. So let's just say agency analytics sold to some major thing and everybody's out on the street. Now you need to go back to your agency life, and you have to start a new agency and do your own thing. So if you had to do that, or for somebody else like that's in that position, like if you were going to start what are some of the tips and strategies that you'd recommend for someone that wanted to start an agency today? Like, what are the top 2 or 3 things that kind of come to mind, whether you would have to do it or whether you were advising somebody that was looking to do that?
Well, first and foremost, if agency analytics sold, I would hopefully advise
benefit from that, of course.
Well, I would also hopefully advise the CEO and say, no, we're going to be one of those big players in the future. Don't sell.
I hear you.
So if someone's looking to start their own digital agency, I actually had a digital agency myself. So I went all virtual from the start. There was never any, decision about an office. I'd say bring in people that you've worked with in the past as well. But everything can be done digitally at home. As for the type of marketing campaigns or, data you might be dealing with, I would really look towards e-commerce. Everyone's going to be making that shift towards trying to sell something online. And that space is only going to become more diverse as you're looking at like selling clothes, selling food, selling baby toys, selling whatever. Each individual brand is either going to partner with, some sort of delivery service like some of them do, or they'll create their own wing. But whatever it is, e-commerce is really going to lead the way. So be a digital agency that's focused on solving the needs of businesses using e-commerce solutions and the data around e-commerce. So I'd say that'd be a really big focus for moving any digital agency forward in the future.
No, for sure. I think buying behavior and how people people are more remote now, right? Even when we get out of this thing, I think we were already trending this way. I think more and more people are going to be buying things online. They're going to be spending more time online. Like if you're a company and you haven't taken that seriously, that's a huge opportunity for existing agencies and even new ones that come up, is to, be prepared for an influx of interest around, businesses needing good partners in these sort of things. So
for me personally, I don't know if I would go back to the agency life.
Yeah,
it was hectic.
It
was hectic, and I've gotten out of that, and I've seen the piece of data.
Yeah.
So if that happened to me, I'm making a beeline to politics somehow.
Not me. God bless you for that one. If that's what you want to do, but
hopefully one day.
There's a lot of the agents. That's interesting because I think there's a lot of people that want to or start agencies just because the barrier to entry is lower. You're not dealing with products. You're just dealing. Look, there's a lot of in any industry. There's people that are really great at it, and then there's people that aren't. And but I think that because there's so much interest in it, because it's, again, you don't have inventory, you're not dealing with, it's even easier to bring in people as contractors. So the barrier to entry is lower. So there's a lot of up and comers around that. So my hope is that, this podcast helps them navigate that more effectively. As crazy as it may seem. Well, you want to create more competition. I'm like, there's enough work to go around. So
I also say, I think right now is a really good time to focus on people.
Yeah.
People really make the business, and how you treat the people, how you find your superheroes to bring them in, the camaraderie between individuals. I think that's going to be more and more important as we start to go to more virtual settings, because the human interaction is still very important to get business done, to understand one another. And I just don't want to see that go away completely as well. So companies that are focusing on their people, I think are also uniquely positioned for the future.
No doubt. So these days, what are you most excited and passionate about what's real, I love the idea of, being excited about things. I think that keeps people happy and alive. So what are you most excited about these days?
Well, it's kind of nerdy, but I really like data policy.
Okay.
It even sounds nerdy when I say it to myself. So,
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that we can start getting more sensible policy around data, data sharing, ad serving. Like I mentioned earlier, this whole Facebook and Apple fiasco. That area really interests me, and it seems like for so long the public citizens, right, have been just used with nothing given back to them. And I'd really like to see some sensible policy coming where maybe they look at us as a resource worth paying for that data. I know that skews their monetization, but in all honesty, it might also increase their platform signups. It would help instill trust from the public to them, and no one really wants data to get out of control. So I'm looking forward to sensible policy
Got it.
in the
All right.
future. Other than that, just kind of walking around Hawaii on the
Hey,
beaches.
it could be worse. It could be worse.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Try to
let's
keep a simple life.
yeah. Let's keep this nerdy theme going. So, what is your favorite? You can pick one, or if you have multiple, what's your favorite app, website, gadget, or book that comes to mind right now?
So my favorite app right now. There's my mouse. I actually downloaded this. It's new to me. It's called Shift,
Oh
and
yeah, I've used it.
is.
I use it every day.
Do you really?
I do.
So it popped up on my Instagram because
I think
that's like the
right
only.
one.
It's one of the only social sites that I spend time on, and I bought the the $99 tier,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm loving it already. Having everything into one compact view, especially
Yep.
the communication. So I'm I'm really loving that right now.
Yeah,
All over it. In fact,
that's a great tip, actually, and I'll jump just because I have so much experience with it. This is a great tool if you're an aspiring or agency owner. So Shift basically it gives you kind of like one application window where you can quickly go in and out of different apps. So I think it's tryshift.com. So go check it out. I should probably track them down and do an interview with them just because I've used it religiously. Where it's really great is if you're an agency and say you have multiple email addresses. A lot of people do, right? You have your personal, your work. We've even taken a step further. Sometimes we have like 3 or 4 different domains that we're working on. And if we need, but what's great is if you're using like G Suite or Microsoft apps, it can be a pain in the butt to have to log in and out. You have to have different browser windows, incognito. It's great in here. You set them all up once, and you can just click between 4 different mail accounts and go in and out really easily. In addition to like hundreds, if not thousands, of other apps. So I love that you brought that up because I agree with you.
That's something I use every day. I used to have like 3 or 4 different platforms open on a window, and I changed the window size of all of them so that I could see like when a badge icon would bounce or like when someone's about to type something. But this, I got a top bar, a sidebar. Like I've got everything I need. WhatsApp in here, Slack, Trello, Gmail. It's pretty cool. So far.
Excellent. No, that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Awesome. So,
what new app are you checking out right now?
What app? The reason I asked this question this way is like I do app, website, gadget, book, because like if you just say one, then it might not apply. My favorite, the one that stands out to me, especially over the past 6 months, are AirPod Pros. I just love using those things. They're so good I use them for music, but I've just found them to be an incredible device to go in and out of calls. They're comfortable. The call quality is really great. Using them for working out. They're just so versatile. Like they're probably not the best for music, but they're good enough. So like the fact that they're so versatile and small, and they've just been like, I use them probably more than anything when it comes, especially to business. So I've just found that I'm all about Apple. They don't do everything right. So I'm not like, blind to their failures, but I think they nailed that one. I use them all the time. It's just been a great gadget. That's the one that comes top of mind for me.
So what do you think about Apple and going back into search? Because that news is all over the place right now.
I don't know. I always felt like at some point somebody is going to disrupt and carve out, a significant portion of that away from Google, and it just
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet. I think it's inevitable. I think at some point, somebody's going to do something that's going to start to shift that in some way. I always felt like it's going to be a data privacy thing. I think someone that comes along and creates something that makes people feel safer in terms of their personally identifiable information. But at the same time, I don't know. I think more and more people are becoming less concerned about that in terms of we live in a new world and technology, and you just have to kind of embrace and accept the fact that your stuff is out there and it's getting harder for it not to be out there. I actually, I'm on the other side of it a little bit. Like, I like getting advertising that's for
So do I.
me. I don't have a problem with my search activity and buying behavior being used to market things to me, because I've come across it. I'm like, this is really cool. I'm going to buy that. I'd rather see that than just general stuff. So I don't personally have a problem. Now, if our phones are listening to us and things like that, maybe that's a little excessive, but generally speaking, I'm okay with it. But I think, if anybody's got the money to do it, it's them. It's just, somebody's going to have to disrupt or do something differently. I think it'll happen eventually, but it's not going to, whoever does it better come out with something incredibly innovative or have a tremendous amount of money to stick through it. Because I worked at Microsoft. I was there. We were trying to compete with Google, and they never got more than anywhere between 8 to 12% share. That never changed. So that was 15 years ago. So, and they're still out there. I think they're only hovering around 8, 9, 10% share of search. So I don't know. That's a tough one.
I was asked if that would affect my business being in SaaS and data, and my answer, I think, was kind of surprising. No, it doesn't, because no matter what those two do, if they fight, if they play nice, no matter what the world does, the end result is always data. Yeah. And there's always going to be a need to visualize, share that data, look at insight, make decisions on that data. So the changes, won't affect my industry. Yeah. How would it affect your industry though?
So we're really more social driven. We don't do a ton of work around search. Social certainly impacts search signals. So I think in that respect, it would. I would think if somebody like an Apple came along and wanted to compete in search, and they made social a higher or a more significant component to search results, I think that would make a huge impact in what we're doing. I think that inevitably, I think social signals have kind of grown in importance in terms of how they impact search results. So we're always paying attention to that. So I think in that regard, if somebody came along and increased the importance of social signals in search results, that would be that'd be great for us. Yeah. So that, that would be an interesting way that it might impact us.
Interesting.
So, yeah, awesome. So let's, before we wrap things up, just a couple more things. So tell me a little bit about the future for agency analytics. Like, what's anything new, exciting? What's on the horizon for the company and the product?
So, sure, yes. Bring someone like me and now talk about the future here.
Sure.
So I see a very bright future for this company. Like I said, they've been around for 10 years, and I really want to turn up the notch. The problems that agencies, small, medium, and enterprise have changed. They've grown. They've moved to different platforms. They've just grown in number, size, and complexity. So we are going to meet those growing needs, those growing challenges. We'll be introducing a lot of really awesome new analytical features. We're also working on new integrations with buzz brands like TikTok. So we're really ramping up integrations, capabilities and features, analytics, what you can do with data, how you share it. So if anyone's on the fence, really right now is a great time to check us out, because there's a lot of great stuff cooking in the oven.
Awesome. I love it. Awesome. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the audience?
I always like to talk about what books we might be reading. So
Yeah.
Right now, I'm actually rereading this book, but it's a great book for anyone who's jumping into like sales leadership roles, marketing roles, or if you are in the middle. It's the Sales Acceleration Formula. So this is by Mark Roberge from HubSpot, and it's a really useful book to kind of help you lean on data and technology to really deliver the best possible sales experience.
Yeah.
So anyone in sales, it's a great read. It's also a good second read too.
Awesome. Well, we use HubSpot and I have for years, so I would lean towards trusting folks from that company, because we just had a lot of success with them, and obviously they've had a lot of access to data and time to be in a good position to have some good insights. So awesome. Well, loved having you. Good conversation. I love that you asked some questions. That was really cool. I haven't had that yet, so I love that. So where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Agency Analytics. And if you want to talk about data, reach out to me. Very, very first of all, love having conversations. Love talking about everyone's problems and solutions around data. So LinkedIn and agencyanalytics.com.
Awesome. So, and if you're listening, you Socialistics podcast listeners, you're going to be able to save 20% on Agency Analytics. You can do that by checking out agencyanalytics.com. Make sure you mention Scott and this podcast episode, and they'll hook you up with that. We'll also include the information in our show notes. Scott, thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, huge lover of all things agency analytics, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us and providing some insights.
Anytime, Jason. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Make sure that you leave a review, a rating, and share with us your feedback. Love having you listening. We'll catch you next week with another episode of Socialistics Social Media Agency Stories.